49ers will also be on NFL Network on Saturday, and while we won't see Ezekiel Elliott, we will see the guys running the ball for Dallas in his absence, an absence that Stephen Jones downplayed today on Rich Eisen's show, telling Rich Elliott's holdout is not discussed on the Cowboys practice field in Oxnard.
It's just not a factor with our coaches and our players. I know certainly it's something the media likes to have something that they can write about, and certainly, I know our fans are interested, in terms of, when this thing might come to a conclusion, but it's certainly, a zero focus as far as our players and our coaches and our organization.
How often are you talking with Zeke's team these days?
Very rarely. You kind of, there's this perception out there about negotiations that, there's these ongoing talks and they go on hours at a time, and that's just not the case. But at the end of the day, this is a distribution dilemma for us. I mean, the money's going to go out the door. It's going to be spent across the board with our team. It's just Jerry and I's job to decide how to divide the pie, and everybody wants their share and as much as they can get, and rightfully so. I mean, that's not the player's problem. That's not Dak's issue. That's not Zeke's issue. That's not Amari's issue, is to worry about who gets what.
So with that in mind, we turn now to Oxnard, California, where the Cowboys are on the field for practice with Jane Slater looking on. Jane, he says they're not really talking about Zeke up there. What are they talking about?
Well, right now they're focusing on this defensive line, Lindsay, and that's because yesterday during Total Access, I told you that I watched defensive end Robert Quinn leave this field. He was nursing his left hand. That ended up being a left hand fracture. They sent him back to Dallas, where today he underwent surgery. Now, I'm told they expect him back for the regular season opener, and here's why that's a little disappointing. Jason Garrett talked about the fact that they've played against this guy for a couple of years now, that they've always been a fan. But when he showed up here at camp and they had him in mini camps and OTAs, he proved to be this instinctive pass rusher. This was a guy that had an ability to get to the quarterback. So it is disappointing not having him, especially when you consider the other end. DeMarcus Lawrence is on the PUP list. He had that shoulder surgery over the summer, but they also expect him back for the regular season opener. What this is, though, according to head coach Jason Garrett, an opportunity for these young guys to step up, specifically Taco Charlton, who 3 years ago they took in the first round. This is a make or break year for him, i.e. this is an opportunity for him in these two players' absence.
Good stuff there, Jane, and you've given us lots to focus on here as we stick around to watch practice number 10 for the Cowboys with David Carr and Terrell Davis here to tell us more about what they are seeing, which is evidently a number of backups trying to fill key roles for now. They've also been without Byron Jones for the early going. As we head back to practice, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the ways that this might impact them in the early going, the lack of full squad reps, so to speak, here in training camp.
That's hard because you don't have a lot of reps to begin with as an NFL team right now. I mean, you go through minicamp and OTAs, and you're very limited. It's just difficult for the young guys to get enough reps, so you have to kind of bank on them being out there at training camp, and if they're not there, the closer you get to the season, the more reps you want to give your veteran guys, and then the young guys just have to kind of figure it out as they go. So it's pretty difficult.
And it's kind of weird because you're asking a team sport or players in a team sport to kind of be individuals, because the guys around you may not be the same guys that you're in a lineup with during the season. So it's got to be a lot of you working on your craft and trying to be the best player that you can be. But and understanding that these guys, the lineups and the rosters can change. And as long as you're getting your reps in and trying to be the best player that you can be, then that's really the main focus here. And it's just, it's training camp, and I think players are aware of that. And, because any given play, a player can go down, so you have to kind of be mindful that you're not going to always line up with the same team. But I think the chemistry between the quarterback and receivers, a lot of times that gets affected. Because they can't work on the timing of everything there. As far as backs, backs are probably the most adjustable position on the field. They don't necessarily need a lot of reps to get that down with the offensive line. But this line here, I mean, this line is going to be instrumental in them getting back to where they want to get to. And I think we talked about something yesterday about Kellen Moore and that offense and how they're going to sort of change that offense to being kind of this downhill running offense to more of a kind of air raid, kind of what you see with the Eagles and the and the Bears. does that change the style of the offensive line? Because a lot of times when you change your sort of offense, you got big guys who are meant to go downhill and just kind of root people out the ground versus having guys who have quick, athleticism, who can pull, who can move and not just go downhill. And that would be an interesting thing to kind of look at heading not only in training camp, but as they go through the season. If Zeke is not there, how do they adjust their offensive line?
Yeah, the fun part with the preseason is even though young guys don't get a lot of reps, you get in that first preseason game and somebody makes a ton of plays and you're oh yeah, hey, he's on our team, he can help us. And the veteran guys start to see that guy and they're like, maybe he can help us in some way on this team. And then he starts getting more reps in practice, and that's how careers are made. It's fun.
Jane Slater's still with us out in Oxnard, California, where, again, the Cowboys are still undergoing live practice, as you see here. Jane, can you catch us up on where we are in practice?
Right now, we're just going through some of those individual drills with the quarterbacks. They still need to see a little bit more out of these backup quarterbacks. Mike White and Cooper Rush just not exactly doing a whole lot here to thrill anyone, just being completely honest. That started in minicamp and OTAs, and, that's why this preseason is going to be big for those guys. They don't necessarily know right now if they've got their backup quarterback on their roster. So that's why this preseason is going to be important for both of them. We're also looking at Dak Prescott and John Kitna over here interacting, something that we've seen a lot of during camp. These two constantly talking. John Kitna constantly over there working with him, talking to him about a specific throw, where his feet are. He's doing that right now, as you can see with Cooper Rush. I did think it was interesting that Kitna made sure to point out to the media yesterday, look, it's great you guys have all this access, but if you see completions or incompletions in practice and you're tracking them, that's not exactly a litmus test for how a particular guy's doing, specifically Dak Prescott. They're experimenting with things here. This is a new offense. They're asking him to do different things. And is he going to be completely perfect when they're doing that? No. So basically from John Kitna, tap the brakes on your talent evaluation of Dak this early in the game and at practice.
I think that's actually a great point by Jane, because when you talk to quarterbacks around the league and when you're in training camp situations, you try to push the envelope with anticipation and timing almost to a fault, where you'll have plays that maybe you threw a little too early and maybe the timing was a little bit off, but you have to do that because when you get in the game, then the game becomes easier and the reps become, second nature. But practice, that's what it's for. So if you see a guy that misses 5 or 6 and 7-on-7 and everyone starts to panic, let's not panic just yet. Maybe he's working on getting the ball out of his hand earlier, because Dak, that is something that he can get a lot better at, is the anticipation throws, because too many times he kind of waits for his receiver to come out of his break. And so I guarantee John Kitna has been fantastic. He was with Carson Palmer in Cincinnati when I first started playing, and he was doing the same thing with Carson. Carson was fantastic with that, so he's going to help Dak as well.
This is a point that Kyle Shanahan has made very eloquently in the past. That happens to be the head coach of the team that the Cowboys are playing on Saturday, and we will head back out to see more from Cowboys practice and hear more from Jane Slater in just a bit. For now, though, there's a few other teams that we'd like to get to.
Indeed.